Know your football on OTB in association with Paddy Power, doing our bit to combat the no football blues.
You're very welcome along to this Friday's edition of Know Your Football. We are reviving the rivalry between Cork and Dublin this afternoon. We're going to have Colin Buig against Philip Egan. And if you want to play along, this is your final call for Know Your Football. You need to get registered and ready to play in about 3 minutes' time. You need to go to quiz.otbsports.com and then we can get you into the quiz and potentially win the big cash prize this afternoon. Of course, Know Your Football is with thanks to Paddy Power. Be sure to check out paddypower.com for their money back specials and always play responsibly. Before we play the quiz, we want to have a chat about the draws which are fresh off the press ahead of the Europa League being completed in Germany and the Champions League Final 8 taking place in Lisbon. Philip Egan, we had the draw just a few minutes ago. We know the path for the teams potentially towards getting to Lisbon or to the final in Germany. And maybe if we start with the Champions League, Phil, we've got a stacked side here where if Man City were to overcome Real Madrid, there's potentially Bayern Munich or Barcelona in the semi-finals.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, you're looking at that side of the draw is much tougher, whereas on the other side, you've got a club that is going to win the Champions League for the first time because you've got Atletico, Leipzig, PSG and Atalanta. So I actually would be thinking Atletico have a great chance of getting to a final because they probably just have a few more competitive games under their belt compared to PSG. And then, yeah, you mentioned that stacked side. So if City can get past Real Madrid, that's a huge call that it was made that they're going to play the second leg at the Etihad. Now, City, since the restart, have been really impressive in certain games, but they've also lost a couple of games. So Real Madrid will think there's still a chance to turn this one around. Only 2-1. Obviously, they've scored 2 goals, but Real Madrid are definitely capable of doing it. Lyon and Juventus, Lyon obviously have an advantage in terms of the 1-0 lead from the first leg in Lyon, but I think Juventus will turn that around. So potentially you're looking at City and Juve, and then on the other side you're probably going to get you're going to get Bayern, and most likely against Barca, which that could be a great tie as well. But yeah, I'm thinking if you were to ask me now, I'd be saying a Bayern and Atletico final.
Right, okay. It's a one-leg affair when it gets into the last 8 of the competition. Those quarterfinals onward will be played in August in Lisbon with the final at the Estadio de Luz. Colin Buig, we look at Man City coming out of the draw. They're the favourites with Paddy Power, quoted to us just a few minutes ago at 3-1. Do you think Man City can win their first Champions League?
I don't think so. No, I don't think they're going to believe it themselves. I think the person at Man City who wants to win the Champions League most is the manager. And I think if he does, you never know what he might do in the future. He might do what Pochettino hinted that he would do if Tottenham had won the Champions League last year, and his work will kind of be done. So in some ways, I'm thinking, are Manchester City better off in order to retain Pep Guardiola not winning the Champions League this season? And I'm not sure that they will. I just don't think they mentally can get past the semi-final. I just don't think they can.
We're not sure if they're going to be in the Champions League next year. Perhaps more important even than the fixture against Real Madrid at the Etihad, they've got that big case coming up at the Court of Arbitration for Sport to determine whether they're going to be there next year. Phil, moving on to the Europa League draw then, we know that the English teams Manchester United and Wolves could potentially meet in the semi-final.
Yeah, well, obviously United are there into the quarterfinals because they have a 5-0 lead from Lask. And that was the first leg was in Austria. I remember it was played behind closed doors. So United will finish that off. And then they have a nice favourable draw in the quarterfinals, Istanbul, Başakşehir or Copenhagen. The Turkish league leaders are a goal up in that one. So you'd favour Istanbul to get through that. United should have nothing to fear playing Istanbul in a one-off game. In terms of Wolves, they've got a bit of work to do. Obviously, Olympiacos, they drew 1-1 away. And, I was impressed with what Wolves had done since they came back. But obviously the last couple of games, that was a real blow last week, losing the game to Arsenal, because Wolves were in with a great chance of finishing in the top 4, obviously playing Chelsea in the final day of the season. But that Wolves game, obviously, or the Arsenal game set them back, and then they go and they lose to Sheffield United. So I think they're done in terms of trying to finish in the top 4. But this does give them a chance to qualify for the Champions League if they obviously win the Europa League. And if they did end up playing Manchester United, they'd have nothing to fear, because a one-off game, we know the way Wolves play on the counter-attack, and they're a very dangerous outfit. But United will be very happy with it, and there is still the possibility that United could play Inter Milan in the final, which would be interesting given the way there's been a few exchanges there in terms of transfers.
It really would be, yeah. A chance for Ashley Young and Romelu Lukaku to play against their former club not too long after they've left Old Trafford. Colin Boog, speaking about Manchester United, for me, probably the favourites to win the Europa League. As Phil mentioned, they're in a really strong position against LASK. OK, they'd have Wolves or Roma or Sevilla in a semi-final and potentially Inter in a final. But given that Ole Gunnar Solskjaer's side are on a run now of 17 games without defeat, they've won their last 3 games in the Premier League by more than 3 goals. They're in flying form coming into this Europa League knockout stage.
What a difference that Bruno Fernandes makes to a team. I fully expect Manchester United to win the Europa League this season, like they did 3 years ago when they beat Ajax in the final in 2017 for Jose Mourinho. And there was palpable optimism then because United had also won the League Cup that season. But I think this is slightly different. And it is amazing to think that when you look back in as recently as January of this year, and Burnley came to Old Trafford and very comfortably defeated their hosts. To go from the nadir of that night where Ole Gunnar Solskjaer looked almost certain to lose his job to, as you say, be on this incredible run of form because one man has come into the midfield and has regenerated and re-energised seemingly everybody around him, including, and probably most importantly, Paul Pogba. So I absolutely do expect Manchester United to win the Europa League, and I expect them to win the FA Cup, and I very much expect them to finish in the top 4. That's how much has changed since restart. Well,
if you're registering or logging in to play the quiz, and Colin is going to be up against Phil just for giggles in the quiz in 2 minutes' time, you've just under 2 minutes left to try and log in or register before we take the first question in the quiz. So before we go to the quiz, I'll just remind you of those draws. The Europa League draw, then Shakhtar or Wolfsburg will take on Basel or Eintracht Frankfurt. Manchester United or LASK will go up against Copenhagen or Istanbul. Inter Milan or Getafe against Bayer Leverkusen or Rangers. Rangers of a real uphill task to try and qualify there. Sevilla and Roma didn't play their first leg, so they've still got 2 legs in the last 16 to play. We'll play the winners of Wolves and Olympiacos. As Phil mentioned, that's on a knife edge at 1 apiece. In the Champions League quarter-finals, that draw was made just before we came on air as well. Real Madrid or Man City up against Lyon or Juventus. RB Leipzig will play Atletico Madrid. Both those teams have already qualified. Atletico knocking Liverpool, the holders, out in the last round. Napoli or Barcelona, that game's 1 apiece from the first leg up against Chelsea or Bayern. Bayern are definitely going to qualify in that one, having won at Stamford Bridge before the break. And Atalanta, who were so impressive in dispatching Valencia in the last round, will go up against the French champions PSG, who haven't played since lockdown because Ligue 1 was basically abandoned for the rest of the season. So that's the quarter-final draw for both the Europa League and for the Champions League, which is made this morning. Some very interesting ties. And Man City, as Phil mentioned, will have home advantage against Real Madrid, with City 2-1 up. City, the current favourites, with our sponsors Paddy Power, to win the competition at 3-1. Of course, our quiz is with thanks to Paddy Power. When this goes back to normal, it's Paddy will have the best money-back specials and featured power prices. We're into the final stages of getting ready for question number 1, just 5 seconds away. If you're waiting to play, over 300 of you trying to win the cash prize. So here we are. Question number 1 on our quiz today. Which club has won the most European Cups? So which club has won the most European Cups? You got to be pretty quick on the trigger on this one today. And we'll give you the answer on that in a second. So 28 seconds ago, your options were Liverpool, Barcelona, AC Milan or Real Madrid, all European royalty. But one team has won more European Cups than the rest. I see confident looks on the faces of both Colin Bouygues and Phil Egan. Do you reckon you've got through that one, lads?
Yeah, you'd have to.
Oh, yeah.
Nice, easy.
No, I stalled a bit, though.
Right, nice, easy one to start for the lads. Let's see if they're still in there. We still have 334 players actually who are involved going into question number 2. I'd imagine all of you have come through. So the second question, from which Scottish club did Liverpool sign Kenny Dalglish? So from which Scottish club did Liverpool sign Kenny Dalglish? It was either Rangers, Celtic, Hibs or Hearts. 2 seconds to get your answer in. You really can't afford to stall. You have to be very, very quick on this one. How are we looking, lads? Confident that you've got 2 out of 2, Phil?
Yeah.
All good, yeah.
You just ease yourself into these. It starts getting, from the final third, question 10 onwards, that's when it starts getting really tricky.
Okay, well, we haven't lost any players in the first 2 questions so far, so that's a pretty good sign. We're coming up on question number 3 on this afternoon's quiz. Our 2 players inside off the ball are very confident they've got 2 from 2. I think all of you have managed to navigate the first 2 hurdles of the race. So who scored for the Republic of Ireland in their draw against Germany at the 2002 World Cup? Your options are Damien Duff, Robbie Keane, Matt Holland or Gary Breen. That's question number 3. Probably very much in the news this week because of a certain birthday. But lads, where are you at with this?
We're all good, yeah.
Okay, well, we'll confirm.
I always thought that went over.
No, right in the top corner past can. We'll give you the answer to question number 1. Which club won the most European Cups? The correct answer is Real Madrid. They have 13, winning their last one a couple of years ago. As we get ready for question number 4. I presume you both got that first question right, lads, did you?
Yeah, sure. There was such a big deal made of the Decima, so
338 players still involved here. Who did Shamrock Rovers defeat in last year's FAI Cup final? Was it Bows, Derry City, Cork City or Dundalk? So who did Shamrock Rovers beat at the Aviva Stadium in last year's FAI Cup final is question number 4. While you're putting in the answers for that, I'll give you the answer for question number 2, and that is from which Scottish club did Liverpool sign Kenny Dalglish? The answer, of course, was Celtic. And before he went on to become a Liverpool legend, both as a player and as a manager. Both of you got that right, lads?
Yeah. It's a good signing, all right, yeah.
Yeah, it went reasonably all right, yeah. Okay, 10 seconds away from our next question here on the quiz. And we're going on to question number 5. So with which Scottish club, sticking with Scottish football, did Alex Ferguson win the European Cup Winners' Cup? Was it Aberdeen, Rangers, Celtic or Hearts? So Aberdeen, Rangers, Celtic or Hearts. You'd be pretty quick on the button on this one.
Most people got that one right anyway.
Yeah, most people. That was an incredible achievement. Like, almost, I wouldn't think you'd forget about it.
Yeah.
Ridiculous achievement.
Yeah,
I'm waiting for the question on Welsh football next.
Yeah, we're going around the State of the Union in the UK. We still have 75 players in with contention of winning the top prize. They've navigated the first 5 questions of the quiz. We're going around very quickly now to question number 6. And that is, which team has played the most seasons in Serie A? So we didn't go to Wales, we went to Italy. Is it Juventus, is it AC Milan, Inter Milan or Roma? You got to know your Italian football for this one. Now, the goal scorer in that draw against Germany in the 2002 World Cup in Japan and Korea was the man who turned 40 this week. That is Robbie Keane. And who did Shamrock Rovers defeat in last year's FAI Cup final? The answer was Dundalk. The great rivalry in League of Ireland at the moment between Shamrock Rovers and Dundalk. As we get ready now for question number 6. We've taken a few players out with the Aberdeen question, I think.
Yeah. The next one was tough as well.
Yeah, very tough. 14 left, is it?
Yeah. Okay, so next question, guys, is who was named the best player at the 2010 World Cup? Was it Andres Iniesta, Diego Forlan, Wesley Sneijder or David Villa? The options across the finalists of that competition, Spain and Holland. We still have 14 players in contention after 7 of our questions. We'll see if this is going to prove troublesome. Of course, the answer to the question in terms of Serie A, which you were hoping to see, who has played the most seasons in Serie A? The answer was Inter. I'd imagine a lot of people were probably drawn towards Juventus or AC Milan. But
the old lady.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not quite as old as Inter in terms of consecutive seasons.
Yeah, I got that one wrong.
Okay, we've still got 12 very smart players who are in contention as we head towards the second half of the quiz. So here we go. Next question. How many English League titles had Chelsea won before Roman Abramovich's takeover? Was it 1, 2, 3 or 4? Tricky one, Colin. I can assure
down
people.
To 4 players.
I can assure people they were far more successful after Roman Abramovich than they were beforehand. But it was a tricky one and has taken out 8 players in one question.
Yeah, they're getting tough.
They are. The player who was named best player at the 2010 World Cup, which also took a lot of people out, was Diego Forlan. Uruguay got to the semi-finals of the competition. He was brilliant during it, but he was named player of the tournament. As we go on to question number 8. So which club has not played in the top flight in every La Liga season? So 3 of these have been ever present in La Liga and 1 hasn't. Athletic Bilbao, Real Madrid, Barcelona or Atletico Madrid?
And I knew as soon as I pressed it, I got it wrong.
Yeah.
What did you go for, Phil?
I went for Bilbao, but it's not. It was the last answer because I remember when they got promoted.
Yeah. I did a Gerrard slip on that. I didn't mean it, but I hit it.
You should have known Fernando Torres played in the Segunda Division for a season. They went down. So the answer to the amount of titles which was won by Chelsea before Roman Abramovich in 2002-2003 was just one English League title before he took over. Now, next question. Who was the Premier League Football Writers Player of the Season in 1999? Was it Andy Cole, Roy Keane, David Ginola or David Beckham? Still 4 players. Everyone who was still in... we've gone down to 3 now. So 3 of the 4 who were still in contention. 1 has dropped off with that answer, which was a tricky enough question because it was the season that Manchester United won the treble. And the confirmed answer, by the way, in the La Liga non-ever-present team, the correct answer is Atletico Madrid. It's a lot of sighs from the inside jury on this one from
I missed the last one as well. I didn't hit the trigger in time.
Now, we should be quick on this one. How many Premier League titles did Ruud van Nistelrooy win during his time at Manchester United? Was it none, 1, 2 or 3? So Ruud van Nistelrooy scored a lot of goals, but did he win many Premier League titles when he was at Old Trafford? Let's give you the answer to the 1999 Footballer of the Year. It was David Ginola. So it wasn't any of the Manchester United players. And I think the vote was split that year with the Ballon d'Or as well. Rivaldo won it, I think, and United didn't actually get the Ballon d'Or that year. So we are down to 2 players who are still in contention, but we're almost there, 11 out of 15. So if you're one of those 2 players, you're getting towards the finishing line here as we head towards our next question. And you are very much in contention to win our cash prize. The 2 guys have got a couple of questions wrong each. So what was Robbie Keane's final club in his playing career? Was it Aston Villa, ATK, LA Galaxy or West Ham? Robbie Keane, birthday this week, turned 40, but what was his final club? Colin Bowie, were you able to guess how many titles Ruud van Nistelrooy won when he was at Manchester United?
Yeah, I'll never forget it because he really underachieved considering his talent. Just the one.
Just the one, yeah.
Maybe if he'd scored that penalty.
Yeah.
Stop.
We never talk about the Invincibles if that penalty doesn't hit the crossbar and bounce back out. Okay, so 5 seconds left here. We're down to just 1 player, so pressure on you if you're that 1 player who's left. You've only got 3 questions left to navigate to win the prize. So who was the Republic of Ireland's captain at the 1990 World Cup? Was it Packy Bonner, Mick McCarthy, Chris Hughton or Andy Townsend? So for the lads, they're just playing for pride to see how many they can get between now and 15. But 1 player, crucially, is still in contention as we stand to win the competition for today. So who was the Republic of Ireland captain was that question at the 1990 World Cup. And I think that player has got through to the next question. Robbie Keane's final club in his playing career was ATK during his time in the Indian Premier League. So we're heading down now to question number 13. We still have 1 player in contention. They just have to come through these next couple of questions and they could be our winner for today.
Yeah, all on their own.
Very much, yeah. They've been on their own now since question 11. So who scored for Fulham in their Europa League final defeat against Atletico Madrid back in 2010? Was it Zoltan Gira? Was it Bobby Zamora? Danny Murphy or Simon Davies? So who scored for Fulham in that defeat against Atletico Madrid? So got through, I think.
Yeah, that is impressive. I got it myself, but only because I remember doing a piece on this with someone and I just remember talking about the final.
Yeah. Were you doing the piece with Stephen Kelly?
I certainly was, yeah.
I was involved. Now, unfortunately, for that 1 player who's left, they got the question wrong. They've just been knocked out, I'm informed. Very tricky one. Go on, Phil. Who was it?
It was Simon Davis.
Yeah. It's great. It was a great final. Atletico Madrid going on to win the Europa League a couple of times in 3 seasons. So we're just playing the last couple of questions here for fun at this point. So who is the last club to win a Scottish domestic trophy besides Celtic? So who were the last team to win a domestic trophy in Scotland before Celtic? And they've had their back-to-back trebles. Was it Rangers, Hearts, Hibs or Aberdeen?
I remember if you think of the team that Atletico had in that final against Fulham.
Forlan and Aguero, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's unbelievable.
Yeah, Forlan and Aguero up front. Simeone had just taken over at that stage. Just a remarkable team. Atletico going on, I think, 3 years later then to win the Spanish League. Last team to win it without Real Madrid or Barcelona. And any guesses, Colm, on who the club were to win a Scottish domestic trophy besides Celtic?
Have we lost him?
Yeah. That question has caught Colm. He was so shocked by it. His Skype has frozen. There we go. Colm, sorry.
I lost you there.
No, I was just going to say, did you know who the last team were to win a Scottish domestic trophy except for Celtic?
I absolutely did not, and I guessed wrong as a result. I said Hearts.
Phil? It was Hibs. Yeah. Hibs. I remember it was the cup final. They beat Rangers.
They did. It was across the town. Hibs, the last team to do so. So unfortunately, we didn't have a winner. 15 out of 15. We had someone who got to 13 out of 15.
That's pretty impressive. I think actually, in all the weeks I've done it, that's the toughest week in terms of questions.
Yeah, no.
I'm making excuses because I only got 10.
Yeah, rolls over.
I got 12. I'll take that now.
12 is not bad. Colm Bowie can come back in a different week and maybe push for the 15. It means that the prize will now roll over. So €2,000 will be available next Friday on the Know Your Football quiz. My thanks to both Phil Egan and Colm Bowie for taking part in the quiz and doing reasonably well. Know Your Football, of course, is brought to you by Paddy Power. Remember to always bet responsibly, and we'll see you back here again for more chances to win next Friday at midday. Thanks for watching.
Know Your Football on OTB in association with Paddy Power. Thanks for playing with us.